Welcome back to Collision, where all of our stories collide. My name is Nick Flores, the host. And yeah, welcome. Welcome to the story. I know we are changing things up. There's some new language around the podcast, there's a new intro. And yeah, thank you for riding with us and continuing to see the evolution of the podcast. This is so fun and exciting. But the mission is still the same. The mission of the podcast is still to share and listen to stories of deconstruction, stories of faith, stories of religion, church experience, church hurt, religious trauma, spiritual trauma, physical trauma, family trauma, all sorts of trauma. It's too long to list because there are so many intricacies and complexities within all of our stories. And every time someone comes on, they share something. I'm like, whoa, that is new. That is a new perspective. That is a new outlook. That is a new experience that has been shared. So if you're interested in hearing more stories, then there are definitely no shortage of them. And so I hope you are encouraged to one day share your story and join in this collective story we're recording for season 3. So if that's you and you're like, hey, I want to share, definitely feel free to reach out directly to me. You can email me at nick@collisionpodcast.org. You can find me on Instagram @collisionpodcast and reach out that way, and that would be great. And so with that, I'm here to introduce our guest. You already know the name because you logged into the app in which you're listening to and probably saw it in the title, Derek Minor. But if you don't know who Derek Minor is, which is very possible, Derek Minor is a Christian hip hop artist. He is a, like I said, musician. He is an entrepreneur, producer, songwriter, all of the above, and so much more to so many other people. And so Derek has been in my ears for a really long time. I grew up listening to Christian hip hop, believe it or not. Actually, you should believe it because it's true. And so Derek has been in my ears, and several of his albums have kind of impacted me in different areas of my life. And so I definitely want to commend him for that, for just being vulnerable in his own songwriting abilities and creating the highest art he can. And he's just continuing to grow. And it's exciting to see. And it's been exciting to even watch his life outside of music. I definitely see him caring for people within communities that he's a part of. Definitely reaching out to them. He's definitely a light and beacon within Christian hip hop. And so yeah, we get talking about just that, Christian hip hop. We get talking about church. We get talking about church business, the differences, and some of the misconceptions he had going into music, and around deconstruction a little bit there. And so it's very fun, very quick. Thank you, Derek Minor, for coming on. And you can find Derek just there, Derek Minor. Search him on Spotify, Apple Music. He's also part of the Relevant podcast, if you know Relevant magazine. So he's sometimes there when the road and his touring schedule allows. And so Derek is here. So here's my conversation with Derek Minor.
What's going on? My name is Derek Minor. I'm a hip hop artist, entrepreneur, and I love God.
Yeah. What was your first experience with church and God and Jesus and the good news?
Yeah, so I'm a church pew baby. Like my mom, so my mom has this story she tells. She says we were in the middle of Pontiac, Michigan, and she said she's heard audibly. She said God told her, she's like, I got plans for that little boy, and if you don't teach him about me, I'm gonna hold you accountable. And ever since then, ever since I can remember, I was in some sort of church on a Sunday morning. So I grew up Pentecostal. I grew up, running around the church, all that good stuff. Yeah, and I have very fond memories, especially early on, about church. Church was always about family. Excuse me. Church has always been about family, and there was some. I mean, obviously, like everybody, we have our ups and downs with church. But my ideas of church was beautiful. Like it was fun. It was family. It was friends that became family. Like people I hold near and dear to my heart to this day. Where, excuse me, where I began to struggle with church was when I started making music. When I started growing in my career in music, because in my mind, music was an extension of the mission of God. Like, we're supposed to
Yeah.
be taking the world for the kingdom of God, right? So
Yeah.
all of the stuff that I've done early in my career, I really felt it was ministry led, right? And it wasn't until I got into like Christian music or out of my little small church that I went to and saw the greater global idea of what church is, I didn't realize that there's also the church and then the business of church.
Mm.
No one told me that, being a Christian artist, it's not about me telling the truth. It's about me making a hit record
Wow.
for the charts. And it's about me
Yeah.
taking the faith that I love and boiling it down to 3 chords and talking about ocean waves and things. So I've always talked about where I came from, which was, my dad was on drugs, my stepdad was on drugs, my mom was a single mother at certain points throughout her life. I dealt with racism growing up in the rural South. So I would talk about all those things in my music, and people would say I'm too honest or too real. And it would also upset people. So around the time when Obama, probably towards the end of Obama's term, and when Trump began to rise and go into office, like, we all saw collectively that church had a political part to it as well.
Yeah.
But again, I want to remind people, and this is something that's taken, I would say, deconstruction on my part, and it's taking me to take a step back, that there's the church and then there's the business of church. And I believe that most people's frustration with church has very little to do with God, has very little to do with the church, but more to do with the business of church. Just like everything in America, that there's a capitalistic arm to the church, unfortunately. Like, it's just an unfortunate thing that there, and I think that for me, the conclusion I came to was, I did not believe the Bible when it said that we're all human. We all fall short of the glory of God. Sometimes we say that, but I don't think we actually believe that, because we get surprised when humans do human things. And that was the thing that I needed to wrestle with, was the idea that there are going to be people at certain churches that their only purpose is to grow their platform. Their only purpose is to take care of their family and put food on the table. That the church is a means to an end for them. I thought that we all was on the same team, but sometimes we're not. But guess what? The Bible said, be weary of wolves in sheep clothing. I wasn't that, right? So then we go in, we take our heart and we just put it on the table, and then somebody breaks it.
Yeah.
So for me, that's where my wrestle with church came in. I had to actually wrestle with the business of church. But now I've come to the point where, my whole purpose is, as I look for people in the body, I'm just looking for honest people that have kind hearts and that love God. And that's where I start as far as when we talk about church. And I think that if we were to be able to make a clear, like, what's church and what's the business of church, I think that would actually make it a lot more clear for people. But that's hard, because a lot of people take and use the emotional connection that we have to church for their own benefit, and it really hurts. It's a painful thing. But yeah, that's my story in 5 minutes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you mentioned being too honest in your music early on, and the church, the business side of church, and all various facets. Just being like, yo, that's too honest. We want you to sing about waves and the spirit moving and all the fun, fanciful stuff, and that kind of. How did you reconcile with yourself approach going back into that and trying to, like, how did you find balance between, because music for you is a business, but it is also a ministry. Where do you draw the line as a creative artist and trying to, again, still make money and provide for yourself? But at the same time, like, speak the truth, speak about God, and share about Jesus, who has made such an impact on your life.
So there's 2 things that I had to do. The first thing I did was, and I believe this was God using my frustration to actually help me. Like the Bible says that the steps of a righteous man are ordered by God in a sense, right? So I in 20 pretty much quit. Like when I made the album The Trap, that's when I pretty
Mhm.
much quit making music for like Christian rap or whatever. That was
Yeah.
my first, like, I was like, nah, I think I'm good. So from there, I started making music for TV and films. I was
Mhm.
like, I'm putting my gift down. Like, I just want to use it just to make money. In other words, I was like, I have to decouple the business from my faith for a season,
Wow.
right? So I
Yeah.
just started making albums and they started getting placed on ESPN, NBA, NFL, different teams was using it. And I just was like, all right, we're going to make a clear separation. And
Mm.
as I did that, it allowed me one to because I also had to check my heart because there was times when I would create merch and I'm like, man, is this the equivalent to selling pigeons in the temple while Jesus
Yeah.
was, running people out? Like I was
Mm.
wondering, like, man, am I taking advantage of people with this stuff that I'm making? And it took me a
Mm.
minute to reconcile that. So until I could reconcile it, I was just like, I'm just gonna make music for TV and film. So that was number one, is I had to personally decouple that. But now, fast forward, we're 2024. I think I put my last album out in 2023 called Nobody's Perfect. What I realized in that season was it was less, my frustrations even were less about the church, the business of church, but they were more about me.
Mm.
I was not confident in myself. I wasn't confident in what God was doing in me, and I wasn't confident that I was righteous, that what I believed was right. And what I would say to people right now that are trying to reconcile that is, listen, if your faith is about taking care of the widows and the orphans and taking care of the needy and things of that nature, don't ever let anybody tell you that you keeping it too honest. Don't ever let anybody tell you that you're keeping it too honest for standing up for truth and standing out for what's right. So where I've landed now that I've been able to decouple myself from worrying about the Christian industry, I can now just be fully honest. And now I'm like, if you accept me, you accept me. If you don't, you don't. I don't really care as much about the business of church because I'm not in it anymore. I never
Mm.
wanted to be in it. I kind of just thought I was making music and people were like, oh, he's a Christian rapper. So I
Yeah.
kind of got ingested into that. So I had to pull myself out of it. And I still, I still, obviously we're making music. I do that. So I have
Yeah.
to, when I say pull myself out of it, I'm not saying like I'm not in Christian industry. What I am
Yeah.
saying though is that my heart is not dictated by what the standards that those people have, right?
Mm.
Like if someone tells me, "Hey, you're being too honest in your music," I'm gonna be like, "Well, don't listen to it. I could care less
Yeah.
what you think about it," right? Like I've just
Yeah.
planted my flag and said, you're gonna accept me as I am in this space, whether you like it or not, and that's what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. And how has that benefited? Because you're decoupling yourself from Christian business and now you're making music for yourself, creative expression, saying your truth. So there's real benefit there.
Yeah.
How has your relationship with God on a personal level benefited from decoupling?
It's been a blessing because I don't have to worry about all right, I'll put it out. Let me run it back. It's been
Mhm.
a blessing, but the biggest blessing is that I've worked on myself to the point to where if I'm standing on what I know is right, I'm not moved by what other people think. That is the cheat code. That's the
Mm.
cheat code to being able to survive in any atmosphere, is if I know I'm moving with integrity and if I know that I'm moving with light and love, I'm not going to worry about people that want to drag me into darkness. They can stay in darkness by themselves. I'm walking in the light, right?
Mm.
So that's whether I'm in a mainstream hip hop setting, whether I'm in a sports setting, or whether I'm in a Christian setting. I'm walking with the light wherever I go. And I'm looking for other people that have light in them. And that's what I'm attracted to. I don't care about the money as much. I don't care about status and all those different things. I just want to be around decent people,
Mm.
decent people with good hearts. Like that's what I'm drawn to. And as I've made that very clear, as far as where I'm moving, that has made life much more simple. And it's made me, at the end of the day, much more happy. So now I don't just give people a pass because they're a Christian. And I don't just
Yeah.
throw people away because they're maybe not a Christian. Because that's a
Yeah.
very, like, man, I've met some people that would say, hey, you know, I don't go to church. And you would think, like, most Christians would say, oh, that person is lost. And some of them people had the most clarity you've ever seen. And sometimes it's
Yeah.
like, and I think also we look at people's journey and we think that where a person is right now, they won't be somewhere else different 5 years from now. So I deal with people based off of character. I don't deal with people based off of like trying to fit in some sort of social club or some kind of group like that. Could care less about it, honestly.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I think a lot of people do forget, like as you said, they're not going to be here forever, or
Yeah.
they're not. Just because their past is their past doesn't mean that's who they are now.
Yeah.
And like, who are we to say where they're going to be 5 years down the road?
Right.
And I think that's such a powerful perspective that is totally lost, and
Absolutely.
we don't give people enough space to to be themselves authentically. We just write them off. Oh, you're in this box. I'm gonna put you there, and you need to just stay there and do what I say. And I think that's really good.
And Nick, if
And
someone does that to us, we would be so angry, right?
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't
yeah,
give people the credence that we want. Like, when I was at my lowest and people wrote me off, now I'm thriving, I'm doing well. And it's like all of those curses that you put on me and said what I was or what I wasn't going to be or what type of person I am, you get to see God show out because he constantly uses the people that are the least. He uses the least every time. That is his playbook every time. And it's like those people that you see that are at their lowest, you never know if that's a David. You don't know if that's a Moses. You don't know who you're looking at. So that's why I try to treat people just with love and respect, no matter where they're at in their journey.
I think a question I have is in my journey, in my walk, I've been in the low. I've been in the low for sure. And people have definitely written me up as well. And then even now with this podcast and starting this new venture for myself personally, and it's a question that my wife and I always talk about is, why am I creating this platform? And why am I wanting to go out in this way from the low and trying to wrestle with, well, people wrote me off, and that kind of sets a fire beneath me to like keep going and keep pushing. I've had all these experiences, and it's like, yeah, I'm doing it for those reasons.
Right.
Where do you wrestle between wanting to like continue to go fight the good fight because you have the power of God behind you, and people wrote you off, and you have these experiences that kind of just push you and to be the best entrepreneur, best creative person you can be, but then at the same time also just like serving yourself and serving your truth? How do you grapple and going between maybe different mindsets?
Man, that's good. What I've had to do is I've had to not judge myself. I've had to not judge myself as harsh. Treat myself like I would talk to a friend. We tend to be harder on ourselves than we are on other people. We have so much grace and so much kindness with other people, but we don't give ourselves any space to make any mistakes, and that's extremely dangerous. You have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what? All I can do is my best. That's it. I only know what I know. I can only do my best, and I'm not going to judge myself more harshly. And I remind myself that if God is with me, I can accomplish anything, and that I don't have to worry about what people think. I'm on my journey. I'm doing my best with what I have, and if I need to change, God will show me that. As far as my own agenda, like, what I found is, if I line my agenda up with love, I'll never lose. Anytime I've ever tried to do something out of rivalry or to prove somebody wrong, like the Bible would say, don't do that. But like, sometimes we look at the Bible as rules and regulations and not guidance from ancient wise people who are trying to point us in a good direction. And when it tells us don't do things out of rivalry and out of vanity, it's not some sort of rule that we need to follow. It's because that's not helpful for us. Anytime I've tried to prove somebody wrong, first of all, if someone doesn't believe in you, there's no amount of accomplishments you can do that's going to make them believe in you. So then if that's the case, that's a failing, that is a failing endeavor. But if I do things out of love and light, I never lose, ever. If I'm feeding the homeless out of love and light, I never lose. If I'm making music out of love and light, I never lose. You never lose that in that way. So that's why I've tried to just line up my own emotions and my own endeavors with love and light.
Yeah, being on this side of heaven and knowing things are still broken and we still make mistakes day to day.
True.
Have there ever been moments in your life recently where you're like, I'm trying, doing as what you just said, but then you fail and you stumble? Where do you have any doubt in how have you grappled and wrestled that doubt?
Man, that's great. So I'm a like I told you, my father growing up was addicted to drugs. My stepdad was also addicted to drugs. Both of them came from homes where the men. So my dad, I never met my grandfather on my dad's side, and he's only seen his dad 3 times in his life. He had only seen his dad 3 times in his life. My stepdad, his father was a religious man, but he was very harsh. So I didn't really know how to raise kids. And I got 2 kids. I got a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old. And there's times when I've been so like I've been a shadow of my parents. Like and there's times when I look in the mirror and I'm like, I'm failing as a father. I'm not doing my best here. Like, I don't want to wound my kids like I got wounded. But the fact is, I'm human and I'm gonna make mistakes with them. So if I want to talk about an area where I'm constantly having to lean on God and constantly failing, but constantly trying to figure it out and be better, it's being a father. Because at this present point right now, this is the best example of a father I've had is me figuring it out on my own. And God himself, and there's been people that older men that have been in and out of my life that I've had a chance to ask questions on how to be a better man, how to be a better husband. Like my stepdad wasn't a great husband to my wife, and every day I have to try to figure that out. And the thing, but again, it goes back to that self-improvement. How I've learned to be a better father was first I had to be a better person. Being a better husband, I had to be a better person. How do you be a better person? I had to find out a way to get rid of that trauma that I dealt with. That trauma, that abandonment, that fear. Yeah. And I had to process all those things to become a more happier and more stable person. And then as I've done that, now I can look at myself with less judgment and look at myself more objectively and say, you know what, Derek, you're a little too angry when you deal with your kids. You got to start being a lot more kind. They don't need disciplinary Derek. They need daddy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And learning that has allowed me to be a lot more sensitive when I deal with my wife and sensitive when I deal with my family. So that's probably an area for sure.
Yeah. Can you maybe dive into how did you find yourself working on yourself? How did you get about there? And what does that look like for you in your day to day, continuing to work on yourself?
That's dope. So a lot of people don't know this, but I actually am I trade stocks for a living too. Like that's something that I do on the side. Like it's a skill that I've been learning. Shout out to my homeboy Nick Chow. He's taking me under his wing and blessed me as far as teaching me with finances and things. And here's the thing about money. If you want to be good at money, you have to decouple yourself from your emotions. You have to be very pragmatic and you have to be very focused. You have to have control of your emotions. No one can not have emotions, but you have to be in control. Otherwise, you'll make bad decisions, right? And one of the biggest decisions that most people make is fear of missing out, meaning that they'll see, let's say right now, Bitcoin is going crazy right now. And there's a lot of people that are going to buy it right now and they're going to lose a lot of money. Or maybe they may not lose a lot right now, but they're going to buy it at the top and it's going to plummet. And they're going to be too prideful to get rid of it. The reason that happens is because emotionally, we don't want to miss out. We've seen all these people make all this money and brag about it. We want to do it, right? So when I first started, that was a huge thing for me, man. I was getting crushed. And my friend told me to read this book called Letting Go. It had nothing to do with stocks. It was all about emotional intelligence. And it's extremely new agey by this guy named David R. Hawkins. But his whole thing is that you have to let go of your emotions. You have to actually feel them and process them. And in America, for sure, we're too busy, we're overworked, we're overstressed and overstimulated. So we have like computers in our face all day, we have phones in our face all day, and we never feel our emotions. Like, especially men. Men are really quick to say something bad happens to a man and he just be like, oh, forget it. It don't matter. I'm tougher. That actually is hurting you. So now what I've tried to do is actually feel and become closer to my emotions, so that now I can treat them almost like a friend. So when I'm angry, I don't even judge myself for being angry anymore. I begin to ask myself, why am I angry? Because God gave us emotions as tools. If an injustice happens, you should be angry. So you shouldn't be running from your anger. That's God's way of telling you that something is wrong. Let's look into it. If a lion is chasing you in the jungle, you should be afraid.
Yeah.
If
Straight up.
you know what I'm saying? If you lose a friend, you should be sad. But we feel like we don't need to be at one with those emotions because they're scary. So what I've tried to do is actually try to lean into them and now ask myself, well, instead of being like, I don't want to feel anymore, saying like, man, why do I feel that way? And that is, for me, where the beginning of self-improvement happens.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for sharing that. That's great advice and great perspective you've learned. And I mean that is advice, but I'd like to ask this question as well, as to kind of round out the conversation.
Yeah.
Is with that, but also, what is one thing you would share to your younger self, or just to somebody on the same path as you that might just be a few years behind, of like, what do you want them to know? What do you want the younger Derek to know?
Don't rush. Be still. Life is not passing you by. Be in the moment. Early on, I had such a desire to prove everybody wrong that I missed out on a lot of great things. I missed out on a lot of good life. And that's what I try not to do now, is be in such a rush that I don't have time to be with my family. Be in such a rush that I don't have time to hang with the homies. Life it's not promised, and you only get a certain amount of it. And the worst thing you could do is fill your time with a whole bunch of things that don't matter while you overlook the things that do matter. So freaking slow down, take your time, and last but not least, have grace and kindness on yourself. Because the Bible says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. But here's the thing, if you don't love yourself, you're going to treat your neighbor with hate. So first, find out how to treat yourself kind so that you can treat others kind.
Yeah. And then last question, what do you want people to know about Derek Minor? Like, one thing coming from this conversation, maybe they know who you are as a musician, or that's their first time hearing about you. What is one thing you want someone to know about you?
Look, my main focus is to motivate and inspire people. And that's what I hope that you get out of everything that I do, is either when you look at me and you see me, you know, making music or on a stage, know that I'm on this stage because I want you to look and say, if he can do it, I can do it. Because I won't say that I'm not supposed to be here, but if you look at the statistics, I definitely had the opportunity to beat the odds, and I had to give all the glory to God for that, because I'm not supposed to be here by typical standards. So I'm thankful, and know if I can do it, you can do it too.
There we go. Thank you so much for jumping on and being open to sharing your story a little bit. It's been
Nick,
good.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you for reaching out, man. This was a dope pod.
Thank you.